Every U.S. school shooter since 2020 names, motives, and missed warnings. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Phoenix Ikner. A young man once seen as thoughtful and promising arrived on a Florida campus with an arsenal. Within minutes, gunfire replaced silence and the community would never be the same. Phoenix Ikner, 20, was not unknown to the community. Born Christian Erickson, he legally changed his name at 15, explaining that he saw himself as a phoenix, rising from the ashes with renewed youth and life. His background was conflicted, a former honor roll student described by a judge as articulate and intelligent, yet one who battled ADHD, emotional dysregulation, and had stopped taking some prescribed medications in the weeks leading up to the shooting. On April 17, 2025, surveillance cameras captured Ikner entering a parking garage at Florida State University around 11 a.m. He moved in and out of his vehicle repeatedly, behavior that prosecutors later cited as evidence of premeditation. At 11:56 a.m., he exited the garage, armed and ready. Witnesses say he began shooting outside the student union with a .45 caliber pistol, moving between buildings and green spaces. He pointed a shotgun at one victim, but it appeared to malfunction. In one instance, he chased a woman before shooting her. When police arrived and issued commands, Ikner refused. He was shot and taken into custody. 2 people were killed in the attack. Tiru Chaba, 45, a vendor from South Carolina, and Robert Morales, 57, a campus food worker from Tallahassee. Both men left behind grieving wives and children. 6 others were wounded. Their names were not made public but were listed in court documents by initials. Investigators later found more weapons in Ikner's car, including an AR-15 style rifle, a second pistol, and the malfunctioning shotgun. Police believe he intended to inflict far greater harm had he not been stopped. There appeared to be no known connection between Ikner and any of the victims. Yet his past made the attack all the more unsettling. He had been a member of the Leon County Sheriff's Youth Advisory Council, a group designed to bridge trust between young people and law enforcement. "This is someone we once mentored," a council member said. "It's devastating to reconcile." Ikner's stepmother is a deputy with the Leon County Sheriff's Office. After the incident, she was placed on leave and reassigned. Ikner himself was transferred from Leon County Jail to Wakulla County Jail to avoid conflict of interest. His first court appearance was on May 12th. By June 6th, prosecutors had filed formal notice of intent to seek the death penalty, citing aggravating factors such as multiple victims and premeditated violence. Ikner has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. His public defenders entered a plea of not guilty and waived his right to a speedy trial. Some of his former classmates at Tallahassee State College recalled troubling behavior. He was reportedly removed from a political club for making comments defending Nazi symbols and criticizing civil rights icons like Rosa Parks. Whether these views influenced the shooting remains under investigation. As of now, Ikner has not been convicted. But the case has shaken the campus, where students held vigils and questioned how someone with such visible warning signs was able to plan an attack without intervention. When a troubled young man walks onto a college campus armed with weapons, the question isn't just what happened but how no one saw it coming. In the silence between red flags and violence, lives are lost. Number 2. Solomon Henderson. A teenager walked into court in the morning and a cafeteria with a gun that same afternoon. What happened in the hours between exposed a system full of warning signs, left unanswered. On January 22, 2025, 17-year-old Solomon Samet Charlie Henderson attended juvenile court in Nashville, Tennessee. He had been charged months earlier with the aggravated sexual exploitation of a minor after investigators found child sexual abuse material on his devices. Then in October, he was arrested for bringing a box cutter to school and threatening another student. But that morning, he appeared in court only for a probation violation. Hours later, he returned to Antioch High School and launched a fatal attack. According to investigators, Henderson retrieved a 9mm Taurus G2C handgun he had hidden in a school restroom. At 1:08 p.m., he entered the cafeteria and confronted 16-year-old Jocelyn Correa Escalante. Within 17 seconds, he fired 10 shots. Jocelyn, described by her family as kind and academically focused, died at the scene. Another 17-year-old male student was grazed in the arm. A second student was injured after falling in the chaos. Solomon then turned the gun on himself and died by suicide. There was no trial, no chance for conviction or defense. But what emerged in the aftermath painted a devastating picture of missed red flags, ideological extremism, and institutional failure. Police discovered Solomon had written a 288-page handwritten manifesto detailing plans to kill at least 10 people. A separate 51-page document included maps of the school, lists of tools and weapons, and photographs of ammunition. Authorities believe he considered staging a diversion at his former middle school to distract police. In the minutes leading up to the attack, Solomon partially live-streamed on the video platform Kick. His writings expressed deep self-loathing, racist ideology, and praise for past mass shooters. Though African American himself, he reportedly embraced neo-Nazi beliefs and expressed hatred toward minority groups. He espoused violence as a solution, a detective told local media. He idolized other school shooters and studied their methods. The connection between Solomon and other extremists was not just ideological. FBI investigators revealed he had followed and interacted with Natalie Samantha Rupno, the 15-year-old shooter in the Abundant Life Christian School attack months earlier. Their online exchanges, rooted in shared grievances and radicalized beliefs, are now central to a broader probe into teenage domestic extremism online. Perhaps most shocking, the gun detection system failed. Antioch High had installed the Omnalert AI system, designed to alert staff to visible firearms. But the pistol went undetected. Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell called it a heartbreaking day for our city. State Representative Justin Jones was blunt: "This is what political inaction on guns looks like." In response, the school district began a sweeping review of campus security. State lawmakers also passed emergency legislation allowing juvenile records to be released if a minor commits a school shooting. The public now knows what was in Solomon's files: behavioral flags, disciplinary warnings, and years of disturbing content visible, documented, but never fully connected. The tragedy left Antioch reeling. Vigils were held. Parents demanded answers. And across Tennessee, a hard question took shape: how does a student walk through so many doors, classrooms, courtrooms, counseling, and still emerge armed and undeterred? Solomon Henderson never faced sentencing. But the evidence he left behind told a story louder than any verdict. When a teenager known to the system turns into a killer within hours, the problem isn't just the gun. It's the chain of ignored signals that allowed him to carry it. Number 3. Colt Gray. A boy once flagged for abuse and paranoia boarded a school bus with an assault rifle hidden in what looked like a class project. Hours later, 4 people would be dead. On September 4, 2024, 14-year-old Colt Gray entered Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia, carrying a SIG Sauer M400 rifle wrapped in a poster board. That morning, he had asked classmates how the school might respond to an active shooter. He sent remorseful texts to both parents. Minutes later, he retrieved the weapon from a restroom, exited wearing yellow gloves, and moved with intent. He first tried re-entering his algebra class, but was blocked by a student who spotted the rifle. Denied entry, Gray turned toward a nearby classroom and opened fire, unleashing up to 15 rounds in a matter of seconds. Christian Angulo, 14, was killed instantly. Gray then ran down the hallway, firing at more students and teachers, fatally striking Mason Schermerhorn, 14, and 2 faculty members, Christina Irami, 53, a math teacher who died shielding students, and Richard Aspinwall, 39, a coach who rushed into danger. 9 others were injured, 7 by gunfire. Staff triggered a panic button system, locking down the school and calling police. By the time officers arrived, Gray had taken his own life in a restroom. The attack stunned Georgia. It was the deadliest school shooting in the state's history. And within days, investigators uncovered the level of planning behind it. In Gray's classroom notebook, detectives found step-by-step instructions, diagrams of his classroom, and estimates predicting 26 kills. Another note at home read, "Forgive me. It is out of my control. See you." A shrine in his bedroom featured newspaper clippings about school shooters and a photo of Parkland gunman Nicholas Cruz, whom Gray reportedly idolized. Authorities say Gray had been planning the shooting for weeks. His father, Colin Gray, is now facing charges of second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter for allegedly purchasing the rifle and ammunition, despite warnings that his son was in psychological crisis. He knew, one prosecutor said. He handed him the weapon anyway. Colt Gray's mental health history was extensive. From 2021 to 2024, Child Welfare Services visited the home repeatedly, responding to allegations of abuse, neglect, and parental drug use. Reports of Colt being beaten by both parents, suffering panic attacks, and expressing suicidal thoughts were filed but often ignored. In 2023, he didn't attend school at all. In August 2024, a counselor documented a severe anxiety episode, noting Colt was shaking uncontrollably and talking about dying. His aunt later revealed he begged to be placed in a mental hospital, but the plan collapsed after his parents argued over who would pay for gas. The weapon was bought legally. Georgia does not require a permit to purchase semi-automatic rifles, nor does it have safe storage laws. A bill offering tax credits for gun safes had been rejected just weeks before the attack. After the shooting, the state passed emergency legislation penalizing unsafe firearm storage around minors. Public reaction was swift and emotional. Vigils were held across Barrow County. President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Governor Brian Kemp issued statements. The school district installed metal detectors and enhanced emergency response systems. And students staged walkouts, demanding more than thoughts and prayers. Gray has been charged as an adult with 55 counts, including 4 of malice murder. He pleaded not guilty but may accept a plea deal. Though too young for the death penalty, he faces life in prison if convicted. But for many, the sentence isn't the focus, it's the silence that came before it. Years of warnings. Dozens of chances to intervene. When a teenager with a map, a motive, and a weapon walks into school undetected, it's not just a system that's failed, it's a society that wasn't listening. Number 4, Aiden Audrey Hale. It began with quiet steps into a place once filled with childhood memories then shattered by gunfire. Aiden Hale's return to Covenant School would leave a nation asking how it ever got this far. Born Audrey Elizabeth Hale, he later identified as a trans man, using he/him pronouns, though police reports initially misgendered him under Tennessee law. On the day of the attack, armed with an AR-style pistol, a 9mm carbine, and a handgun, he shot through the school's glass doors, entering with calculated determination. Surveillance and witness accounts reveal he discharged a staggering 152 rounds, targeting 6 victims without discrimination. 3 9-year-old children, Evelyn Diekhouse, William Kinney, and Hallie Scruggs, were killed alongside 3 adults, Cynthia Peak, a substitute teacher, Mike Hill, a custodian, and Catherine Kuntz, the school's head. 1 third-grade student survived a gunshot wound. A police officer was injured by shattered glass. The randomness of the victims underscores the brutality. These were innocents in a place presumed safe. Investigators uncovered extensive premeditation. Police Chief John Drake confirmed Hale had detailed maps of the school, marked entry points, and a written manifesto outlining the attack. He had conducted reconnaissance in 2021 under false pretenses, filming and photographing hallways on campus tours. His journals included timelines, diagrams, and instructions. He even ensured his writings were saved to a thumb drive for discovery. Mental health records show Hale was treated for anxiety, depression, and an emotional disorder. Writings referenced autism, OCD, and the aftermath of a late gender transition. But Hale also deliberately withheld these struggles from providers, reportedly stating he should not be stopped. Colleagues and online acquaintances recalled a man steeped in self-hatred and obsessed with notoriety. Following his death at the scene, killed by Metropolitan Nashville police officers, Hale left behind fractured families, grieving students, and a shaken school community. Nashville Mayor John Cooper called it an unspeakable tragedy. After 4 lives lost, Tennessee lawmakers quickly responded: emergency funding for school safety, statewide bans on privacy overrides and gun storage, and legislation enabling private schools to hire resource officers. A fierce legal battle emerged over Hale's journals. The Covenant School and a majority of parents argued the writings should die with the shooter, fearing their release might grant him posthumous power. Yet civil liberties groups backed by public figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump Jr. insisted on transparency, citing public records laws. Critics warned that sealing the files under copyright law sets a dangerous precedent. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear this massacre was no spontaneous act of anger, but the culmination of deep-seated turmoil, extremist ideation, and meticulous planning. For months, Hale cultivated resentment, studied past shooters, and mapped his targets. Investigators followed a trail of self-published hostility on the darker fringes of social media. In the days after, thousands gathered at Nashville's state capitol to demand change. Students across Tennessee organized walkouts, holding signs that memorialized the ages of the young victims. State Representative Justin Jones condemned lawmakers' inaction, stating, "We can't call this a school shooting and move on. We have to act." Today, metal detectors and panic button systems stand sentinel at Covenant School. But the deeper wounds remain: how a person so troubled, with so many signs, became so lethal. When a shooter steals an archive of innocent lives, we confront not just gun control, but the shadows of mental health, radicalization, and silence in systems meant to protect. When a trans-identified former student kills in a place he once considered home, we must ask, how did identity, ideation, and access intersect so fatally, and what will it take to stop the next one? Number 5. Christopher Darnell Jones, Jr. Soft footsteps echoed across a campus once filled with laughter, then silence. On November 13, 2022, a top-tier college football team bus stopped at the University of Virginia, and in seconds, everything changed. 22-year-old Christopher Darnell Jones, Jr., a former UVA football player, carried concealed grief and weapons onto that chartered bus returning from a class trip to Washington, D.C. Investigators later confirmed he was armed with a handgun and targeted his own teammates, 3 of whom were killed instantly and 2 more injured. Devin Chandler, a third-year student from North Carolina, remembered as the big kid who always smiled, lost his life that day. Dean Perry, from Miami, artistic and gentle, was shot as he slept. Lavelle Davis Jr., a wide receiver with an old soul heart, was executed with a precise headshot. As the bus arrived, Jones reportedly shouted, "You guys are always messing with me," then opened fire. Witnesses describe a lull as he walked the aisle and shot again, the method chillingly deliberate. 8 seconds of terror transformed the bus into a crime scene. 2 survivors, UNC-bound Mike Hollins and student Marley Morrigan, were wounded. Hollins was injured while trying to shield friends. The driver, bus staff, and passengers later helped law enforcement secure the scene. As authorities arrived, Jones did not flee, eventually surrendering. Months of premeditation later unraveled in court. Prosecutors revealed evidence that Jones had attempted to purchase firearms before, faced charges for a concealed weapons violation in 2021, and had failed a background check in early 2022. He had also been investigated for pre-existing concealed firearm allegations, including refusal to cooperate with university investigations. But apparently no one connected the dots. A prosecutor noted that one victim was shot while asleep, suggesting elimination of any witness. Jones entered a guilty plea in November 2024, 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated malicious wounding, and 5 counts of using a firearm in a felony. His plea underscored his own acknowledgement of responsibility. He faces life, a fate he accepted 4 years after the tragedy. Mental health records paint a conflicted portrait. His father said Jones was really paranoid in the weeks before the shooting, feeling picked on and unable to handle it. Teammates and classmates corroborated his struggles with anger, bullying, and hazing, though an internal investigation had closed without resolution. There is no recorded history of substance abuse, only allegations of isolation and emotional distress. The attack at UVA rippled far beyond campus. A vigil drew over 9,000 mourners. The school canceled classes and paused athletic programs for days. Governor Glenn Youngkin, President Biden, and First Lady Jill Biden issued joint statements mourning the violence and calling for reforms. President Biden decried the existence of weapons of war on campuses. In response, UVA and local schools revisited threat assessment protocols. Lawmakers pressed for stronger gun restrictions and better support systems for student mental health. Representative Jennifer Wexton called for greater gun safety reform in our country. Advocates emphasized that Jones's prior concealed weapon violations and school communications should have triggered intervention. 4 lives ended, 2 more wounded, and a community forever changed. But questions linger. How did a frustrated college student with mounting warning signs successfully arm himself and target his teammates? How did repeated refusal from Jones to cooperate block early threat assessment? When a student opens fire in a space meant for teaching, it isn't just a moment, it's a failure of the systems that should have listened, intervened, and acted. Number 6. Orlando Harris. Quiet footsteps echoed down empty hallways. That day, He carried a weapon and a broken mind into a school's core. Orlando Deshaun Harris, 19, returned to Central Visual and Performing Arts High School in St. Louis County on October 24, 2022, wielding an AR-15 style rifle and over 600 rounds of ammunition concealed in a backpack. A graduate from the year before, Harris entered his former school with a list of 5 intended targets, teachers he once focused on, although the victims would not be those he had named. At approximately 11:40 a.m., surveillance footage captures Harris firing through the glass front door. Witnesses recalled a chilling shout, "I hate this school. I hate everybody." Once inside, he advanced down a hallway, breaking classroom windows and stabbing at anyone in his path as security footage registered slow-motion terror. He paused outside a dance class. His rifle malfunctioned just as he raised it, allowing students to escape as glass shattered all around them. Inside the building, Harris struck twice. 15-year-old sophomore Alexandria Bell, described by her adoptive father as outgoing and a junior varsity dancer looking forward to her Sweet 16, was shot in the torso and died on the scene. Meanwhile, 61-year-old PE teacher Jean Kukska died shielding students. A colleague later stated she put herself between him and the students. 7 others were injured, 4 by gunfire, including one student who jumped from a second-floor window, breaking his ankle in the panic. The chaos sent students and staff into lockdown, raising alarm and drawing police to gradually subdue the attacker. When officers arrived, Harris was fatally shot after exchanging rounds in the hallway. Investigators later recovered alarming evidence of premeditation. A handwritten note found in Harris's car referenced school shooters and death tolls, ending with his goal to be the next national school shooter. A map of the school revealed carefully plotted routes, and additional writing expressed his loneliness. "I don't have any friends, never had a social life. Isolated loner my whole life." A journal included precise plans to kill at least 30 people before being killed or surrendering. Mental health professionals had seen signs of turmoil. Harris's family confirmed multiple suicide attempts in 2021 and again in 2022. He had been institutionalized for depression and anxiety. His psychiatrist warned of suicidal thoughts and worthlessness, which Harris reportedly concealed, intent on carrying out his plan. A note in his room quoted, "This was the perfect storm of a mass shooter," revealing a morbid self-awareness. Harris's access to firearms highlighted systemic failures. Facing a failed FBI background check on October 8, 2022, he still managed to acquire an AR-15 through a private sale. On October 15th, his own mother called police to report the gun in the house. Officers confiscated it but returned it to an adult family member. Missouri's lack of a red flag law and oversight left the weapon in Harris's reach until the shooting. Local leaders responded with urgency. President Biden labeled it another school shooting, urging an assault weapons ban. Representative Cori Bush and St. Louis Mayor Tishora Jones hosted a town hall on gun violence, while Missouri educators announced the introduction of gun safety lessons in schools. Memoirs of Kukska and Alexandria have drawn tears and outrage. Statewide scrutiny followed after the Washington Post's editorial criticized Missouri's weak gun laws. Meanwhile, proposals were drafted to close loopholes in private firearm sales and establish red flag laws. Central Visual and Performing Arts High School installed locked entryways and panic alert systems. Yet students and parents continue to feel unsafe. Harris's story raises urgent questions. A graduate armed with maps and hate, whose warnings were visible yet left unheeded. When premeditated violence enters our classrooms under the weight of known red flags, failure isn't just personal, it's systemic. We must act before whispers turn into gunfire. Number 7. Salvador Ramos. It began with a bullet to the face, fired by an 18-year-old at his own grandmother. Hours later, a Texas elementary school would become a war zone. On May 24, 2022, Salvador Ramos shot his 66-year-old grandmother in the head at their Uvalde home. She survived, crawling out to call 911 as Ramos drove away, armed with 2 AR platform rifles, hundreds of hollow-point rounds, and a handwritten plan to become the next national school shooter. At 11:32 a.m., Ramos crashed his truck outside Robb Elementary School. He shot out glass doors to gain entry, stormed 2 adjoining 4th-grade classrooms, and fired more than 100 rounds in under 4 minutes. By the end of his rampage, he had shot 164 rounds, killing 19 children and 2 teachers. All the children were 9 to 11 years old. The teachers, Eva Mireles and Irma Garcia, died shielding their students. Witnesses described horror. One survivor said Ramos walked in and declared, "You're all gonna die," then opened fire. Another said he played sad music while carrying out the massacre. He shot a teacher and reportedly said, "Good night" before pulling the trigger. After the killing, he smeared the blood of victims on a chalkboard and wrote LOL. Ramos had carefully planned his attack. After turning 18, he legally purchased 2 semi-automatic rifles and 1,740 rounds of ammunition. His social media trail told the story in real time. In February 2022, he joked in a group chat about being a school shooter. In March, he posted 10 more days. When asked if he meant to shoot up a school, he replied, "You'll see." Hours before the massacre, he messaged a girl online, "I'm going to shoot my grandmother. I'm going to shoot an elementary school." He had also asked his sister to buy him a gun months prior. She refused. He later worked at Wendy's, saving money, which friends assumed was for a car or apartment. Instead, it funded bullets. Investigators found he carried a detailed map of Robb Elementary and had drawn diagrams in his notebook. The classroom he targeted was the same one he attended in 4th grade, where classmates once mocked his stutter and clothing. Some had cruelly called him school shooter years before. That same week, he told an acquaintance about how much he hated 4th grade. Despite these signs, Ramos had no official mental health diagnosis. A state report noted he searched sociopath online. His former girlfriend told the FBI he may have been sexually abused by one of his mother's boyfriends as a child. His mother called him not a monster, but admitted he was aggressive. He was known to torture animals, live stream abuse, and threaten sexual violence online. When law enforcement arrived, they waited, despite children calling 911 from inside the classroom. Officers did not breach the door for over an hour. The Texas House called the response a systemic failure. In 2024, the school police chief and 1 officer were indicted for child endangerment. Others were fired or resigned. The massacre prompted national outrage. President Biden demanded gun reform. Congress passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act weeks later, the most sweeping federal gun legislation since 1994. But Texas leaders rejected calls for stricter gun laws, focusing instead on hardening schools. Robb Elementary was permanently closed. It will be demolished and rebuilt. Lawsuits were filed against gun makers, sellers, and law enforcement. Families still seek accountability. Salvador Ramos was shot dead by police inside the classroom. His cremated remains were handled quietly after local funeral homes refused to take him. When a teenager buys rifles instead of graduation gifts and uses them on children, what failed wasn't just security. It was every system meant to stop him. Number 8. Ethan Robert Crumbley. He wandered school hallways with a gun and a journal full of plans, quiet, unnoticed, until the shots began. What happened next would change Michigan law and redefine parental responsibility. On November 30, 2021, 15-year-old Ethan Robert Crumbley brought a 9mm handgun into Oxford High School. It had been purchased just days earlier by his father as a birthday gift. That morning, Crumbley entered the English wing and opened fire. Within minutes, 4 students, Madison Baldwin, 17 years old, Hannah St. Juliana, 14 years old, Tate Meyer, 16 years old, and Justin Schilling, 17 years old, were dead. 6 others, including 1 teacher, were injured. According to witness testimony and courtroom accounts, the attack was not random. Judge Kwame Rowe later described Crumbley as stalking the hallways, picking and choosing who was going to die. He fired through barricaded doors, aimed for heads and chests, and delivered multiple shots to each victim. In Hannah's case, he fired a second round after she was already down. With Justin, he forced the teen to kneel before shooting him execution style. Crumbley's journal revealed disturbing intent. "The shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the gun and the ammo. I am fully committed to this now," he wrote days before the attack. He had researched school shootings, studied Michigan sentencing laws, and even evaluated different firearms for maximum damage. His defense team later revealed he had asked for mental health help multiple times but was ignored. In court, he pleaded guilty to 24 charges, including terrorism causing death, 4 counts of first-degree murder, and 7 counts of assault with intent to murder. Prosecutors said the attack was the result of careful planning, calculated cruelty, and a desire for infamy. Crumbley had written in his notebook that he wanted to become the biggest school shooter in Michigan history. At sentencing on December 8, 2023, the judge imposed life in prison without the possibility of parole. He cited Crumbley's obsession with violence, lack of remorse, and continued consumption of violent content in jail. Even behind bars, Crumbley bypassed tablet security settings to watch graphic material. His own words sealed his fate. "This is nobody's fault but mine," he told the court. "Give me whatever sentence the victims' families asked for." But the legal fallout didn't stop with him. In a landmark decision, Crumbley's parents, James and Jennifer, were both charged and later convicted of involuntary manslaughter. It marked the first time in U.S. history that parents were held criminally responsible for their child's school shooting. Prosecutors argued the couple ignored obvious red flags and allowed access to the weapon, despite knowing their son was troubled. They became a symbol of the debate over gun storage and parental accountability. The Oxford case reignited national conversations. Survivors spoke of trauma, PTSD, and lost futures. One mother, Jill Soave, told Crumbley in court that her son Justin would have been your friend if you had just asked. Lawmakers proposed legislation to tighten gun laws, and school districts across the country reviewed their mental health protocols. Crumbley tried to appeal, claiming ineffective counsel and raising concerns about prenatal alcohol exposure, but Michigan courts rejected all motions. In 2024, he was transferred to Oaks Correctional Facility to serve his sentence. Oxford High remains unchanged. Students walk past memorials, and the halls once filled with routine now carry weight. The scars run deep, not just in the families, but in a system grappling with missed signals and accountability. When a teenager maps out murder, pleads for help, and still finds a loaded gun, the question isn't just why he did it, it's why no one stopped him. The names you just heard are only a fraction of the full story. For every bullet fired, there was a warning missed. For every life lost, there was a moment to intervene. And yet, again and again, we ask, how did no one stop it? But the truth is, there are more names coming. More cases buried in court files. More schools are forever marked. And on this channel, we'll bring them all to light. So if you want to see the next chapter, if you want to understand how far it goes, hit subscribe to Justice Reversed right now. Tap the bell icon so you're the first to uncover the next story. Because what comes next will be even darker. And you won't want to miss it.